Welcome to Sword of the Stars. Our time with the sovereignty of man spans well over 50 turns, from 580 to turn 635. A generation passes as humanity expands his right to be among the stars. Let us look upon those heroes and reflect upon their deeds. Lord Admiral Desiree Arrowsmith, an admiral who first encountered the Suul'Ka and fought the initial engagements against them. He is revered for destroying Zuul claims within the province of Harvest. Lord Admiral Akira Sidgwick, a media icon who defended Suul from the Loa initial attack. Later in life, grew a conviction to destroy Zuul slaver raids within the sovereign. The granddaughter of Dimitri Naismith, Lord Admiral Atlanta Naismith. She is renowned for her offensive successes deep within Loa space. Vice Admiral Domingo Hussein, a scholar of the highest order, instrumental in developing military doctrine to wage offensive war against the Loa. Finally, Vice Admiral Jerusalem Bati, defender of the far-flung reaches of sovereign space, always outmatched and always overcoming. The vessels of this era of man have a certain style, forged from war, from necessity, and ingenuity. The sovereign naval ship is a functional marvel of defense. It is clear to all spacefaring creatures that man's vessels are a formidable foe in the field of battle. One admiral stands out from the rest. Tala Linnaeus is known as the Valkyrie of Death to the Zuul. No other admiral since Boudica Nelson has received the honored rank of Admiral of Valor. Let us experience her crusade against the Suul'Ka who dare to be found within the sovereignty space. The scum pirate slaver, Ratanak, vile and villainous, even among his own kind. In the distance, his great slave Karak is intercepted by our Admiral of Valor. Filled to the brim with those unfortunate souls damned within, it is unarmed and vulnerable. For this vessel's purpose is not war, but to construct those weapons for war. As Zuul cruisers line up to engage in broadsides, Marines stand ready to protect the sovereign navy from within. For the Zuul have developed a new tactic, that is, boarding and attacking manned ships from within, as well as from without. Such a bloody affair anytime an engagement with the Zuul happens. When those plasma torpedoes impact the constructor slave Karak, no one in the sovereign navy feels remorse for the damned that are within. For all know that after going through any Suul'Kification, which is genetic or cybernetic modifications imposed by the Zuul, it is much more merciful to be destroyed and avenged. Admiral of Valor, Tala Linnaeus, is the harbinger of vengeance. Suul'Ka vessels, at best, are a cobbled menagerie of parts and cruelty. They stand no chance in a stand-up fight against the sovereign navy. From her command cruiser, the Attilio Rogolo, she commands the fleet to mercilessly destroy all Zuul vessels. This command is carried out with precision and in short order. Do you see that third cruiser attempt to run for a second as it lost faith in the battle? Well, This is the trademark of Linnaeus. No Suul'Ka is left alive. This next battle is one that is brought about by the folly and lust for revenge. The world of redemption has long been a bulwark against the encroachment of the Suul'Ka. This has resulted in the death of many prominent Zuul. Also, this world is the home port world of the Terra Nova colonial fleet. In previous episodes, it may seem that the Suul'Ka are a completely hedonistic society. This presumption could not be further from the truth. In fact, the Suul'Ka's social foundation is based on the fundamental belief in the elder gods. Thus, their collective empire is called the Devoted. Even the Prester Suul'Ka that rebelled and splintered from the Devoted have a deep social order based on human Catholicism, as they reside among the Liir of the Sleepless. Well, these machinations of the Zuul society is probably too complex to explain here, but it does turn out that the Suul'Ka declare an inquisition on redemption. Thus, Inquisitor Ravadash the Vengeful is sent to enact this order of extermination. Admiral Linnaeus has only 3 ships in her fleet, which are the dreadnought battleship Richmond, the command cruiser ship Attilio Rogolo, and the cruiser plasma torpedo ship Calchas. Being that Inquisitor Ravadash and his fleet are comprised of zealots, they practically ignore the Terra Nova colonial fleet in their mission to exterminate the planet of redemption. You may have noticed large discs clamped underneath the Zuul vessels. These discs are filled to the brim with the slave armies of abominations, waiting for the order of the Inquisitor to be unleashed upon the planet. However, for some reason, that order of Inquisition does not come. Instead, at the apex of the battle, the so-called zealots break ranks and are thrown into confusion under the withering crossfire of redemption and the Terra Nova colonial fleet. The sovereign navy and the citizens work in almost perfect synchronicity as the Inquisitor's fleet gets torn asunder. This battle is a clear demonstration of the commanding ability Admiral of Valor Linnaeus wields upon the battlefield. Faith, devotion, and single-minded dogma hold no place when engaged in battle with the sovereign navy. A harsh lesson that the Inquisitor and his zealots are learning in the most brutal fashion. Though this lesson is a short-lived one, as Admiral Linnaeus will soon exterminate all Zuul forces down to the last living creature. Some within the Sovereign Naval Command back away from her merciless battle doctrine. Oh yes, the clash with Lord Perret. This battle takes place en route to colonizing a new world. To that end, the Terra Nova colonial fleet is charged with escorting the colonizer cruiser to reassignment for Roer and Dam. Coincidentally, Lord Perret of the Devoted is on a similar duty, and the Zuul node tear and the human node line intersects at this unknown system. This leads to a clash between these two fleets, as the Admiral of Valor never leaves any Zuul encountered uncontested. You may have noticed that the Zuul's colonizer cruiser is taken out right away. This is a testament to the cold-hearted precision that is Linnaeus. However, Lord Perret counters with an attack of his own by successfully boarding the now classified human colonizer cruiser and slaughtering her entire crew. Then, the Zuul on board turn the guns on the sovereign navy. This leaves the admiral no choice but to destroy the colonizer with the other Zuul vessels. It should be clear by now that Linnaeus is the most respected and feared admiral of her time and fully deserves her distinction. Despite the setbacks that we just laid witness to, the sovereignty of man establishes the world of perdition in the Ro Eridani system. Imperialists within the sovereignty of man at this time develop a special shield modulation technique. Also, from the lowest scrap found on perdition, a new concept of electromagnetic pulse weaponry is discovered. Based on these recent events and discoveries, the imperialists within the sovereignty devise a new configuration of planetary assault cruiser for further conquest of the game's machine territory. This cruiser type and methods of deployment are based heavily from ideas and concepts brought forth by the now retired Vice Admiral Domingo Hussein. The Admiral himself is an imperialist, and his military doctrine is greatly revered and supported by imperialist politicians and citizens throughout the sovereignty of man. The sovereignty of man, however, has a healthy bipartisan political spectrum, and those of the sovereign political leaning have not sat idle either. Mediated by the Prester Suul'Ka, Liir and human diplomats form a summit and actually settle a peace between the two species. After 400 years of war and of genocide between man and Liir, this is the single greatest act of diplomacy, and it resonates throughout all of mankind. Imperialists and sovereigns alike work together to try and form an alliance, but the Sleepless balk to go this far. However, the Loa are a common enemy between the Liir and man, and the Liir do agree in military coordination against this enemy. A new fleet is formed and based in the new colony of Perdition. This fleet, named Soldiers of Perdition, has a young and previously unknown Rear Admiral named Kaj Blake. Eager to engage in battle, this young admiral is well studied in the military doctrine defined by the famed strategist Domingo Hussein. With a fleet completely comprised of planetary assault cruisers, 7 of these cruisers are of the newly designed modulated deflector shielding. Of course, the Nanchan, Father Ogun, knows they are coming. Furthermore, another Nanchan, Origin Legua, also has a physical expression here as well. So Admiral Kaj Blake comes in fully deployed, in case an unknown Olari materializes unexpectedly. Also, this has a sort of shock and awe effect of posture. This gives great morale boost to the unproven and experimental fleet formation. Rear Admiral Kaj Blake has no need to worry about an Olari in ambush. True to the doctrine laid forth by Domingo Hussein, Vice Admiral Lynn Bantham of the Nirvana Revenge Fleet interdicts and patrols the system of Beta Hydri in tandem with the Soldiers of Perdition fleet. Nothing gets past her iron dome of defense, as this is a trait that she is known for by her colleagues. Her fleet is tailor-made for their role, as the battleship Mesudaya and many fast cruisers with battle cruisers fill the ranks of the Nirvana Revenge fleet. So you can see that the Soldiers of Perdition sail unhindered towards the core, protected by Father Ogun. The first shots have been fired, the battle engaged. All the plans and theories are now brought to fruition in the field of battle. Admiral Blake and the soldiers of perdition now stand on the precipice to prove the effectiveness of this new cruiser and the doctrine behind their deployment. A squadron of assault craft from the SMS Athabasca move forward in advance of the main fleet. Mysteriously, the Nanchans watch and do very little to stop their approach to the well-developed core found on the planet. Some within the Sovereign Navy say that this is just their method of operation, as many within the rank and file are none too impressed with the game's machine's ability to conduct war. They are impressed, however, by the durability they have to withstand war. What impresses the naval ranks the most, though, is the new modulated deflector shield's ability to defeat the lowest planetary barrage. The deflectors are nearly invulnerable, but they do have a weakness. The technique to bring the shields to effectiveness of this desired nature concentrates all the energy across the bow of the cruisers. This leaves the engineering and aft of the vessel completely exposed. The Nanchans see this as well and direct their planetary barrage to target these areas of the ships. However, Admiral Blake maintains his phalanx. True to their word, the Liir of the Sleepless send a singer in the black named Lonnie. Having battled against each other for so long, both the Sovereign Navy and the Sleepless Navy's vessels have many similar characteristics. Perfectly balanced to fight each other, the two fleets' differences perfectly complement each other as well. As Admiral Blake focuses on the ground and pound, Singer Lonnie provides point defense and engages the invincible Nanchans. This keeps Father Ogan and Origin Legua distracted. Well, at least that is the hope anyways. This is the first time the Sovereign Navy and the Sleepless Navy find themselves in the same system at the same time and not destroying each other. Quite the opposite, actually. And 200 years ago, no one would say this was ever going to be a possibility. The imperialists have a newfound respect for those of the sovereign political spectrum. Discussions abound throughout the fleet about the possibilities that the Prester Suul'Ka and the Liir may just be like mankind in many ways, maybe more than most are willing to admit. This single event changes everything going forward, and this much everyone can agree upon. Speaking of the past, here is a relic from the Liir-Human War during its last century of turns. At that time, the sovereignty of mankind was growing desperate, and cheaply manufactured frigates manned by patriots and militia was usually the only thing standing between a world and complete genocide when the Liir fleet arrived. This frigate is TC-1, the first of its class to be built. TC-1 is assigned to Nirvana Revenge Fleet under Vice Admiral Lin Bentham. Though these frigates were mass-produced in their time, only a few remain today. Of those few, TC-1 is the only one not in reserve and in active duty. So what is TC-1's role? Being light and fast, it can scout and engage enemy ships in a skirmish, long enough to allow the heavier battleships and cruisers to catch up. Even so, with no shields and many other essential battle systems, the frigate cannot linger long in the battle unsupported. Still, it is a novelty to see one in action beyond the human-Liir conflict. This scene is a general overview of what it is like to assault the game's machine planetary core. Being that the Loa do not physically manifest itself like biological species, it can be rather difficult to attack and destroy infrastructure. The sovereignty of man, with their extensive experience and martial ability, have yet to adopt an effective method. With the Nanchan expressions seemingly invincible to the Sleepless guns, it really just comes down to continuing the fight until the game's machine turn off their planetary core. This seems to happen when the Nanchans have had enough, so it is not really a defeat at all. This has the Sovereign Military Command concerned because one day they may hold their ground. And as of this moment, the sovereignty of man has no real strategy to deal with that if that event should happen. There is a lot of debate as to why the Loa will simply just shut down entire systems when they could hold out nearly indefinitely. Such was the case in Ro Eridani, and here at the Nexus system of Beta Hydri, it seems that the Sovereign Navy can fire its guns until the barrels melt. The Loa will still be there until they disassemble it all into cubes and disperse through their pulse gates. Really, the sovereignty of man has no idea how extensive the game's machine is, so maybe these conflicts are of minor importance. However, it is clear that heavier ordnance is required for the inevitable conflict where the Loa fight to the death. So imperialists within the Sovereign Military Command call for weapons R&D focus. The Liir always have had light weapons, while great for knocking down missile barrages. Only the Fireball, which was the nickname for their plasma torpedo, put fear in the Sovereign Navy during their conflict. Sadly, nothing like that was brought to this engagement by them. It seems that by the time of this scene, Father Ogun has disassembled his expression. Only Origin Legua remains in orbit. I think it's pretty cool to see the Liir having surrounded Legua and the sovereignty of man surrounding the planet. Since all three sides are clearly focused on defense for their vessels, equipment, and such, it really is a grind, and that's all it is, just a huge grind. In this scene, the glory of the Sovereign Navy is on full display. After the grinding assault of Beta Hydri 2's Loa Corps, Admiral Kaj Blake sends the full fleet squadron in advance formation of the main fleet. The Admiral is turning out to be a promising commander, and the Sovereign Military Command is taking notice as he sweeps towards the final game's machine core. Flanking in forward left position is the Singer Lonnie's fleet. As it turns out, Lonnie is a young Singer. So both the Liir and Man fleet seem to have a certain synergy as the two young fleet commanders coordinate together for the glory of their respective species. The game's machine is not out of the fight yet, however. Olari Brise Houndo waited for an opportunity to run the blockade, and then he has it. As Vice Admiral Lynn Bentham needs supplies, a window opens up, and this Olari seizes the moment. He is determined to stop the invasion here, and quickly assembles his fleet expressions of war from the nanocubes. Then he charges headlong towards the Liir Man fleet to engage in open battle. Such an exciting sally forth. The battlefield erupts into blood, fury, cries, explosions, as the three fleets clash in brutal broadsides. By far, No one of this generation experiences such a rudiment brawl of this magnitude since the days of the Liir Sovereign War. The desperation and determination of this Alari is self-evident, as it gives no quarter and does not take one step back. Still, the Sovereign Navy is in high spirits and well-disciplined, and it shows in this encounter. Although, in the end, the Soldiers of Perdition fleet receives significant damage and begins a fighting disengagement with the cover of the Sleepless naval firepower at their backs. Sovereign prejudices are being stripped away as this battle rages with intensity. The Liir shield does not falter, pushing Olari Brise Houndo towards the right flank and opening a pathway to the lower core. Singer Lonnie and Admiral Blake fight as brothers in arms. So after a short regroup, the Soldiers of Perdition send their squadrons through the open corridor made by the sacrifices of the Sleepless. As the Liir lift the shield, Man picks up the spear and thrusts forward. There is nothing the game's machine can do now. The core will soon be lost. The Nanchans have left, and only one Olari remains, and he is surrounded. The system of Beta Hydri will soon fall. This is not the true victory, however. Hundreds of years of hatred, prejudice, suspicion is being washed away, where there was only pure hatred and genocidal acts of evil before. More than just external wounds are healing. In this episode, both conservative imperialist and liberal sovereign political parties both see each other's point of view. Each recognize the need to compromise in bipartisan debate, as both sides of the spectrum are valid. For the imperialists, it is the need for offensive war against the enemies of man. For the sovereigns, it is the aim to maintain independence and engage in diplomacy with this species of the galaxy. Neither should discourage the voice of the other, for in compromise, the good for all is achieved. Any who eliminate the voice of others to promote those who only echo their own views are soon to disaster. This episode is beautiful in all aspects and gives hope in the episodes to come. Is the sovereignty of man libertine harbingers of genocide? Is mankind stoic defenders of their independence? Is the Sleepless monsters capable of unspeakable horrors? Is the Liir a society of love and family? Is the game's machine the end of flesh? Is the Loa a young consciousness discovering the truth of reality? Is the Devoted a sick, fanatical abomination bent on the profane? Is the Suul'Ka a species of unwavering faith? The answer is quanta, for it is both and neither. Thank you for watching. Let us congress again in the next episode of Sword of the Stars.